Hi everyone. So welcome to our webinar session for React.js. First of all, I'm warm welcome to everyone. So today we're going to talk about what is React.js, how do we do the installations, and after installing, we can write a small program like in the React, how the React.js work, and what are the different components are available in React.js, and some of the basic concepts in the React.js fundamental concepts. Okay, this is the agenda for today's discussions. Okay, next is what is React. So what is JS? So React.js is an open source front-end JavaScript library. So it's a free and open source, like it is anyone can able to install it. It's a JavaScript libraries. Okay, exactly correct. For building some of the user interface applications and some of the components. Like as I told you, it's a free and open source JavaScript library, mainly to develop some of the user interface applications. Okay. And who is maintaining it? So it is maintained by Meta, that is called Facebook company. So it is Meta and open community, the individual developers. Okay. The framework, corresponding framework we are using here is Next.js. Okay, that is a framework we are using on it. Okay, as I told you, React.js is an open source JavaScript library for building some of the user interface based components. And next is it is maintained by Meta, that is called Facebook, and some of the community developers and somebody from the company. So mainly the React.js we are using to develop some of the web page application that is called page, mobile based applications, or if you want to server side, if you want to render any application, the framework we're using here is Next.js framework. Okay. So, and then React.js, it will use this MVC component. What is MVC? Nothing but model view controller. Okay, so basically it is going to use the JavaScript to perform some of the scripting level language plus HTML. So HTML mainly for to develop some of the front end applications, maybe the front end web page. I would say the static page want to create, we can do it by using HTML. Okay, the combination of JavaScript plus HTML we are calling as React.js. Okay, next is how what are the aspects of React.js. So it is having for two things. One is for visual DOM, document object models, and real object model, document object model. Okay, basically how this is going to traverse the path, right? So different aspects. Let's talk about one by one. So what is data binding? So data binding will have a one way of so basically the React.js will have this one way of data binding. Suppose server to client components, right? Maybe the JavaScript mostly it will run on the client side, right? So first it will make the actions. So what kind of actions, what kind of operations we need to perform it, and that will dispatch to the server, and it will store it and store the state of the informations onto the server. Finally, it is going to display it on the front end screen, the view operations, right? So this is the way the data will get binded in the React.js. So, and one more thing, right? So if you want to work on the React.js, we have a NPM, node package manager. It's required. So that is called, we used to call it NPM to work on the React.js. So let's see how the server side rendering. So suppose if you want to perform any server side applications, how the server side, the data will get rendered to the client side, right? So we are accessing from the browser, like whatever data we are getting, it will get a response from the React update. React will give us the data back to the clients. So from where it will get? It will get from the Node.js, that is called npm package manager. So npm mainly for the server side component, right? So server side we need to install it to render the pages, to render whatever the HTTP requests we are sending, we are getting from browser. Those pages we need to render back to the client side. So this is the way like we can able to access this client server side components. First of, okay, let's talk about installations. So installation very easy, guys. So we need to have this npm. Okay, we need to have the npm has to be installed. Like it's a very simple process. So let's share the installation guide, like how we can install the React.js from the Microsoft corporations. Okay, so we need to follow the steps. Like first of all, we need to create it from the command line tool. We need to create it from the command line tools. Okay, and then we can install the npx component. Okay, so we can start the npm component. That's it. It's a very simple process. And then the run build. We can build that. So just follow the steps. Okay, it's a very simple process. Just to 5 to 6 line, six steps of process. That's it. Okay, so I just share the link in the chat window. Just if you follow it, you can able to install. It's very simple process. Okay, next is like how do we create a simple basic React.js code? Like so as we discussed, right? This will use the HTML template, like HTML template. So just to create 8 sections. So this is to display the top title of the HTML page. And then we're just creating the component, right? So the JavaScript, the rendering the components, like simple functions, right? We are just, what is a function? Everyone knows function is a reusable component we are creating and using for multiple places. Okay, and then we are just using a React DOM component to render the corresponding containers, like the container. I hope very clear, right? So we just are rendering it, like whatever the HTML page we created. So basically, it is going to call some of the JavaScript scripting part, like just we talk about, right? It is having a JS plus HTML. So we need to call the corresponding npm JS script, JavaScript, finally to display the corresponding output. So basically, this is the server side. We need to just run this program. So we'll get a corresponding output. Okay, next is we'll talk about what are the different as part of the course, right? As part of the React.js course, what are the different modules are available? It's a structured way of learning it from the Edureka. So let's talk about each and every modules. So let's talk about roadmap about this program. Okay, in the module 1, we're going to talk about web development. Okay, introduction to web development in the React.js. Okay, what is web development and how do we create a web pages, and what are the different HTML templates and JavaScript template we have to use it. All the concepts we are covering in the module 1. The module 2, we're going to talk about what are the different components and what are different application layouts. Module 3, we're going to handling different navigations, like what are the different routes, routing mechanism, the mechanisms, right? So let's quickly go through all the modules. So basically this will contains almost 10 to 11 different modules, like to talk about all the how we can test the applications, how do we create a asynchronous programming, the middleware applications, okay, and then how do we fetch the data from the database by using GraphQL. So basically, how do we make the interface? How do we make the connection between? Basically, how do we get the data from the database, right? So definitely, some of the applications we have to read the data from corresponding DB based application, right? So for that, how do we use a GraphQL? Okay, and then to test and deployments the applications, and then navigate the routes, different routes. Finally, building the application with the API part. So basically, this is the complete roadmap from module 1 to module 10 about this program. Okay, next is we'll talk about the React fundamentals, like what are the different stages in the React.js things. So JSX, components, props, different state, lifecycle, the events, the operation, reference data, reference component, key component, the router. Okay, these are the different stages, different concepts in the React.js. Let's talk about one by one. JSX, we have a regular JSX, different event component. Okay, so what are the different attributes we can able to embed to the React.js? So, and then what is the expression? So what kind of logic, what kind of expression statement we can use it, how we can use it, right? So that is the we can embed that expressions into our JavaScript component. So next is we're going to talk about components. So like if you're going to create any web page, so something like we have this title, right? We have this maybe the first component and activity component, and then like component. The right hand side we'll have the list of members, like what are the different shortcuts. So each and everything we are calling as a component. Okay, so if you want to create a complete page, like complete web page, the multiple components we can group together, and then we can creating a single page. Let's say this is the component 1, right? So as we talk about the first, the top section, right? The topmost sections, it's a component 1. Okay, in the recent activity, like what kind of this is a component 2. So basically, we're just combining multiple components into to create a single web page. Okay, next we'll talk about what are the different the stateful the component, right? So we can store the component informations into memory, and we can change the state. Like so basically, if you want a rendering, right, something we need to store it into the memory, like the memory, maybe in memory component, and then we can change the state, right, from one state to another state. Okay, the state we talk about, right? So what is pros? Pros are read-only component, like simple one, right? So if you want to return some values, or if you want to call some functions, right? So in the functions, we are declaring or we are passing some of the arguments, right? So when you go to call the functions, definitely we cannot change or we cannot deviate the number of arguments, right? So we have to pass the exactly correct arguments. So that is the whatever we are declaring it, same way we need to call it, right? So that is a way. That is a way of prop state. Okay, we'll talk about state. The state. Suppose we have some conditional based component, right? Suppose based on different. Let's see, we have the component. We have multiple components. So in the web page we talk about, right? Maybe the top heading section, the event section, the left hand side, the like section, the list of components, right? So we're just combining all the component and the corresponding states. Like what is the state? Okay, it is a how do we rendering it, right? All the state has to be stored, okay, to make the corresponding web pages. So basically, if you want to create a dynamic web page, this is possible by using the state of the objects. Next is what is event. So event are trigger based actions. So basically, if you want to move the cursor over, or if you want to click the button, right? So the corresponding actions has to be taken. So that is the event. Okay, what kind of actions I want to make it depending on the what actions we are performing it. Like move. Okay, if I want to move the cursor to the corresponding place, I want to get the tooltip, or I want to get some of the descriptive information, right? So that is the event. What kind of actions I want to perform from the React component. Okay, after we are moving the cursor. Okay, same thing, right? So we have a button, right? So we press the left button, right button from the mouse, right? What kind of so we have a corresponding event listener. So the event listener keep on wait for what kind of actions we performing it. So based on the action, that is going to respond the corresponding values, corresponding actions, corresponding response. Okay, that is the event. Let's talk about the reference and then key component. Okay, so next is key are the one of the elements. So one of the elements the React.js. Basically, for the key elements help us to identify the corresponding uniqueness. Suppose if we want to pass some value, right? So I want to render some component, some pages, or if you want to pass a different keys, I want to render the different sections. So that one we can take care in the key sections in the key component. Next is the routing. So routing is how do you want to use a corresponding framework, right? So build in. So basically the router is a powerful routing library. It was developed at top of the React framework. So basically it is going to help us to adding some of the new screens, or if you want to change the URL dynamically and creating some of the dynamic web pages. All those things will be done by using React router component. So what are the steps the router component will do, right? First, easily understand the application view. And if you want to store the state and in the simple URL, possible. And if you want to create nested views and the corresponding resolution is also possible. Okay. And if you want to restore to move back, forward or backward, or if you want to create some standardized structure and do some of the implicit styles, the CSS, right? All those things will be done in the routing sections. Okay, fine. This is pretty much about React.js. Thank you for joining webinar sessions. Thank you all.